Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today is the next video in my series of March of the Machine Commander deck techs. I'm covering every legendary creature from the March of the Machine main set in no particular order, plus the extra legends from Mom Jumpstart and the special pre-release promos. And if there's interest, I may even do the non-face legends from the Mom Commander product. So if there's a March of the Machine Commander you'd like to see me build, or a way you want to see me build it, let me know in the comments below. As you see, today our commander is Ghalta and Mavren, respectively the green-aligned elder dinosaur held in stasis in Erazka, which I'm pointing out so you don't get it confused, for Mavren, a Hierophant and later the Pontifex of the Church of Dusk, both from Ixalan. When Huatli summoned the 5 elder dinosaurs to drive back the Phyrexians, Mavren Fane saw Ghalta just annihilate those invaders. Come on, big dino. So Mavren ordered his legionnaires to follow Ghalta, taking out any Phyrexians who managed to avoid her teeth or tail or claws. The card's art depicts Mavren even riding Ghalta, with some kind of structure strapped to her back from which spears are flying out, because that's what Ghalta needed to be truly fearsome, javelineers. I'm excited to show you what I came up with for this commander, but before we get started, let's go over my deck building template. I like to build my decks around my commander. I want to show off why it's such a cool card and why I put it at the head of my deck. So whatever it asks of me, I put 30 cards toward that. It's what our deck tries to do at the table and how we try to win. 30 more cards go toward supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction. I usually run 1 or 2 sweepers just to clear the board in case it's needed, sometimes more if it would play into the game plan, but sometimes none at all. But I almost always keep to my floor of 38 lands, so I make sure I hit all my land drops and I can cast my spells. That's especially true in a deck with a 7-mana commander. So let's talk about our team-up commander. Ghalta and Mavren is a 12/12 legendary dinosaur vampire. For 3 double green and double white. It has trample and an attack trigger. Whenever we attack, it doesn't say when Ghalta and Mavren attacks, just when we attack at all, we choose one. We either make a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures, so it doesn't count Ghalta and Mavren itself. Or we make X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Again, doesn't count our commander itself. And so that's, so hang on. Let's take a closer look at this card art. This is really beautiful composition. I really like the way that we see Ghalta's vibrant stripes down her sides and her light feathering, as well as the sort of black, white, gold contrast for Mavren. Even ignoring the not supported by the fiction structure on the back, populated with little vampires, they're probably regular-sized vampires, this artist has done an amazing job here, but something kind of bothers me about it. What is Mavren actually doing for this team-up? Sure, he's a powerful vampire cleric, but he's riding on top of a huge Tyrannosaurus. Let's take another look at Ghalta. Yep, pretty big. And are these carved stone edifices at her feet? Yep, they're actual buildings. And Mavren is, so he's just a regular-sized guy. So maybe the team-up card gives us a clue. Okay, looks like the power and toughness is the same as Ghalta herself. And it only has trample, which Ghalta also has. It doesn't even really have like lifelink or some other vampire ability. Oh, but neither does Mavren. It's Mavren himself. Then what is Mavren even doing here? If you've asked yourself these kinds of questions, then you, like me, are spending too much time thinking about these cards. But that's what this channel is all about. So let's take it as given that these two are bringing approximately the same amount to the table. Seems possible. Sure. So our commander wants us to attack, of course, and rewards us for going tall, that is, having creatures with high power, and for going wide, which is having a lot of creatures. If we go tall, we get the Ghalta side of things, making an extra attacker that's just as big as our biggest creature other than our commander. And if we go wide, we see Mavren's contribution. a bunch of vampires following behind, not attacking yet, ready to defend us until our next turn when they join the fray. So because these two are equal partners, our deck plays toward both strategies. For Mavren, we have 28 spells that go wide, making tokens and giving us value from them. For Ghalta, we have 29 spells that either go tall, pump up our team, or both. Yes, that's one more spell for Ghalta than for Mavren, but several of our spells actually work for both of these sides, and the deck is still pretty evenly split. I don't think Mavren will mind. Best of all, we have a bunch of cards that reward us for everything we do, from creatures that get taller the wider our board gets, to ones that make more creature tokens the bigger they become. No matter how big our individual creatures get or our army becomes, we have ways to sneak past blockers or just trample over them for serious damage. Plus, we have a few solid finishers that can help us overrun the battlefield or simply win the game out of nowhere. And our commander is there for it all. They can choose to engage or not, since they don't count themselves for either mode of their attack trigger. We can let Mavren guide our plays by summoning a squadron of vampires, or we can let Ghalta take the wheel and trample in for a boatload of commander damage. They decide each combat how they want to be involved, building out our board in ever more dramatic ways. All they want is to take the fight to our opponents, and our legion of creatures and tokens is happy to oblige. Don't be fooled by Mavren hanging on to the primal hunger by a thread. Appearances aside, this is what teamwork looks like. You'll enjoy this deck if you like a combination of strategic decision-making and fair, go-to-attacks magic. Or if you love littering your playmat with endless tokens, burying your opponents in value and cardboard alike. So as usual, this Moxfield list we're going to be going over today is linked in the video's description. At the bottom of it, you will see a considering section, a section of cards that I decided ultimately not to include in the deck, but if you have a bigger or smaller budget, or if you're going for a different kind of focus than I am, that considering section is a great place to get started if you want to build your own Ghalta and Mavren deck. So, I want to mention first of all that we have a section of 30 cards that care about and make tokens. We're not going to go over all these in this section. We're going to talk about what they actually do in our deck. It's just worth noting that tokens is sort of our game plan, and we've split it into two sort of halves. The first of those halves is Go Tall. We're going to talk about these cards that let us go tall. That's what these sections are about. Going tall and pump are about making big creatures so we can take advantage of Ghalta's half of the attack trigger. Our go wide cards, which we'll see after that, take advantage of Mavren's half, helps us go wider. So we start with an uncommon from Bloomburrow. It's Burrow Guard Mentor. For a green and a white, we get a star rabbit soldier with trample that just has power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control. Great. We get to have something that gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more creatures we put out, and it's got trample as well. Pretty great. Next we have Horn of Valhalla. This is an artifact that has an adventure. If you haven't seen adventures yet, here's the way this works. When this card's in your hand, we can play it just as an equipment. If we do, we pay 1 and a white, and we've cast the Horn of Valhalla. It will enter as an equipment that equips for 3 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each creature we control. But if it's in our hand, if we want, we can cast the adventure side of it, which is Isgard's Call. For X and double white, we get a sorcery adventure that makes X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. And if we cast that adventure, we then exile the card, and we can cast the artifact half of it from exile. So either we get just an artifact, or we get a sorcery and then an artifact. But once it's on the battlefield, we can't cast the sorcery from the battlefield. It's either adventure and then equipment, or just equipment. Either way you want to do it. But in any case, this is one of the cards that helps us with both sides of our game plan. We can either go wide, or we can make a creature much, much bigger based on the amount of creatures we have in play. Next up is Idol of Oblivion. It's almost an auto-include in every deck that's heavy on tokens. For 2 generic mana, we get an artifact that lets us tap it to draw a card, but only if we created a token this turn. So it's pretty strong in this deck just as a card advantage engine, but we can also pay 8, tap, and sack it to make a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. So if we're desperate for a 10/10, we can have one. And then we attack with it, Ghalta and Mavren will trigger, and we get a 10/10 trampling dinosaur that's also tapped and attacking. Seems good. Next is Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. This card goes nuts in a commander game. For 1 and double white, we get a star 4 legendary human knight with vigilance, whose power is equal to the number of creatures we control. So that's why she's in this section. She's just going to get bigger and bigger power. And whenever we attack, for each opponent, we make a 1/1 human that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. So it's sort of like Adeline has, it's not really like Myriad, I guess. You just choose every opponent, and either they or one of their planeswalkers is suddenly being attacked by a 1/1 human. So if those humans don't die in the process, our board has gotten wider beyond combat. But even if they were to die in combat, during that time, Adeline's power is bigger by 3, assuming 3 opponents. Next is Champion of Lamholt. This card is just too good in any green go-wide deck. For 1 and double green, we get a 1/1 human warrior that says creatures with power less than this creature's power can't block creatures you control. So read that again. It means any of our opponent's creatures that have power less than the Champion of Lamholt are unable to block our creatures, just entirely. You don't have to compare the power of our creatures to anything. It's just Champion of Lamholt's power. Anything that our opponents control with lesser power is unable to block our attacks, period. And whenever another creature we control enters, we put a +1/+1 counter on the Champion of Lamholt. Meaning, Champion is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's how it goes tall. And as it gets bigger, it makes more and more of our creatures unblockable, including itself. Next is Queen All-in-All of Rudok from Dominaria United. Just really cool art. For a green and double white, we get a star legendary elf noble with power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures we control. So similar to that Burrowguard Mentor. But in addition, rather than having trample, if 1 or more creature tokens would be created under our control, we make those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So this is a replacement effect. It means we get extra tokens. That seems pretty good. Next is Big Stomps. It's Topiary Stomper. I really like this card. 1 and double green for a 4/4 plant dinosaur with vigilance, and when it attacks, we get to Rampant Growth. We search our library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. Now, Big Stomps can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands, but this is a 3-mana ramp spell that comes with a ferocious creature, a creature with power 4 or greater. So once we're able to get ourselves ramped out, which is not that hard in this deck, we're going to be able to have a 4/4 vigilance that can attack for us. Pretty good. Next is one of our big finishers. Dragon Throne of Tarkir is a 4 generic mana legendary equipment that equips for 3, so that's a lot of mana. But it also gives the equipped creature Defender, so that doesn't feel super good to put on our 12/12 commander with trample, except it also gives pay 2 and tap, and other creatures you control gain trample, and +X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. Now, Ghalta and Mavren is a 12/12 trample, but for the low price of 4 mana, and then 3 mana, and then 2 mana each turn we want to use this, we can make all of our creatures plus Ghalta. So +12/+12 and trample. That will probably end the game with a board as wide as ours. So slow to get equipped and get activated, but so worth it. And our commander is 7 mana. If we've got 2 more mana than that, we can just take the Dragon Throne of Tarkir can go from our hand to activated in the same turn. Next is Renata Called to the Hunt from Theros Beyond Death. 2 and double green for a star 3 legendary enchantment creature demigod with power equal to our devotion to green. Devotion is the number of green pips among the casting costs for all of our permanents in play. So for example, if we had these 8 cards in play, our devotion to green would be 11, it looks like. 1, 2 pips here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then these pips count toward both, so 10, 11. So Renata, if we have those cards in play, is an 11/3. On her own, she's just a 2/3 because her own casting cost counts for that devotion. So that's how devotion works. And Renata says each other creature we control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So we don't do a whole lot of counters in this deck. We do some, but Renata is our way of making everything just a little bit bigger. Next is Sumala Rumblers. Sumala Rumblers is only from Ravnica Clue, which is pretty neat. For 2 and double hybrid Selesnya mana, so either 2 and double white, 2 and double green, or 2 a white and a green, we get a star 4 worm with power equal to the number of creatures we control, and Myriad. We have a couple of sources of Myriad in this deck. Myriad means whenever we attack with Sumala Rumblers, for each other opponent besides the one we're attacking, we make a token copy of Sumala Rumblers that is attacking either that opponent or a planeswalker they control, and then at the end of combat, we exile those tokens. So this is a way for us to temporarily go wider, but it also means that this worm and its token copies are now 2 bigger, assuming 3 opponents, because we're making 2 copies of it. Neat. Boss's Chauffeur, I love this card from Nukapena originally. Boss's Chauffeur is 4 and a white for a 0/0 elf citizen, but it enters with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to 1 plus the number of other creatures you control. So number of other creatures plus 1 is the number of creatures, including the Boss's Chauffeur. So it comes in and its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures we control. And whenever another creature we control enters, it gets a counter on it. So it's not exactly power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control all the time. It's just it's equal to the highest number and gets bigger from there. And when it dies, we make a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token for each counter on it. So the car gets to where it's going, the limo, and it disgorges a whole bunch of citizens. So it gets bigger the wider we get, and then it makes us even wider when it dies. Next is Scion of Calamity. This is 3 and double green for a 5/5 dinosaur, and it also has Myriad. So we've already seen how Myriad works. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So we get a naturalize or a disenchant if you want to think of it that way. It doesn't have trample, but whenever we attack with this, every opponent's getting attacked with a 5/5. So as long as we are doing that damage to a player rather than a planeswalker or something, we're going to be able to blow up an artifact or an enchantment. It's pretty nice. Next is Crash the Party. For 5 and a green, we have an instant that makes a tapped 1/1 green Rhino Warrior creature token for each tapped creature we control. So we can cast this during combat when we are attacking with 10 creatures. And as long as our creatures don't have vigilance, if they're all tapped, we're going to get 40 power on the board for 6 mana. So yeah, this gets better and better as things go on our own. Now, it does come in tapped, but worth doing. We don't have to do this during combat as well. We could tap out somehow, do a big attack, and then post-combat, all of our creatures still remain tapped, assuming they didn't have vigilance. So we wait until our opponent's turn, our opponent to the right's end step even, and we crash the party then. And if we've got 10 creatures that are tapped, we make 10 tapped 4/4 Rhino Warriors. Then we go to our untapped step, and we swing in with an enormous amount of power. Next is Requiem Angel. 5 and a white for a 5/5 angel with flying that says whenever another non-spirit creature you control dies, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So it says non-spirit. It does not say non-token. So any of our tokens that aren't spirits, which these 1/1s are, when they die, we're going to replace them with a 1/1 spirit. Do we have any other spirits in the deck? Nope, no spirits at all, just this angel. So pretty good. A good way for us to be able to attack with a whole lot of tokens, knowing that we're going to probably double the number of things we're attacking with, thanks to our commander's trigger making a bunch of vampires. And then anything that we have attacked with that has died, we're going to get to replace it immediately with a 1/1 white spirit. So yeah. Next is Silverwing Squadron. This is from Throne of Eldraine, my favorite set, but it's from the Brawl decks for Throne of Eldraine. So a weird card. 5 and a white gives us a flying vigilant human knight with power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures we control. So a flying vigilant version of that Beauregard Mentor or of Queen All-in-All, except that it doesn't have trample, just flying and vigilance. But when it attacks, we make a number of 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance each, or rather equal to the number of opponents we have. So these are not attacking like they would be with Myriad, but we get to, if we have 3 opponents, immediately make 3 tokens, which makes Silverwing Squadron 3 bigger in power and toughness. Pretty sweet. Next we have, I'm so glad there's a deck to put this in, Ancient Imperiosaur. 5 and double green for a 6/6 dinosaur with Convoke, meaning when we cast it, we can tap our creatures to contribute to pay the cost of the spell. They're not making mana, they're just helping cast it. It's just a funny way to put it. So either we can tap them to contribute generic mana, or 1 mana of the creature's color. So if we're tapping green creatures, we can tap it for these green pips. If we're tapping anything else, including green creatures, we can tap it for these other pips. For these other generic mana. Anyway, the Imperiosaur is a 6/6 with Trample and Ward 2 that enters with 2 1/1 counters on it for each creature that convoked it. Meaning, if we convoke it for 7, it's a 20/20 Trample Ward 2. That's just too much fun. And just, we attack with that while Ghalta and Mavren are out. We make another 20/20 Trample, like Dinosaur Token. Just pretty sweet. This is a big thing. I was able to make this happen in Limited. I don't remember if it was the pre-release or something, but I got out like a 14/14 Imperiosaur somehow. Yeah, just good times. Sometimes you want big stuff, what can I say? And if you do, the Angry Bacon is here for you. Endre's Forerunners is 5 and triple green for a 7/7 boar with Vigilance, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. When it enters, all of our other creatures get +2/+2, Vigilance, and Trample until end of turn. So this is like a baby Craterhoof. This is our budget version of a finisher that's similar to Craterhoof Behemoth. If you've got a Craterhoof or you want to include it in this deck, feel free. It's in the considering section. But I like running the Angry Bacon as a way to get that same kind of overrun effect on a body. So yeah, here we go. Next we have Aziri's Predation. It's one of our board wipes. For 5 and triple green, we have a sorcery that says for each creature our opponents control, we make a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast, and each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures. So essentially, we look at all the creatures our opponents have, and we make a 4/4 beast that's going to fight each of those creatures. Each creature gets a beast that fights it. That may kill our opponent's creatures, that may kill our beasts, it may do both. But any of the beasts that we've created that remains alive after all these fights have occurred, we get to keep. So these are big because they're 4/4s, they're ferocious, and we're probably clearing an awful lot of creatures off the battlefield in the process. Last in this section is the Skullspore Nexus. 6 and double green for a legendary artifact that costs less, equal to based on the number of power, the greatest power among creatures we control. So if Ghalta and Mavren is out, it costs double green because it's reduced by 12. But of course, this only reduces the generic mana cost, not the entire cost. It says whenever 1 or more non-token creatures we control die, we create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with base power and toughness each equal to the total power of those creatures. So we have a lot of tokens in our deck, but if one of our non-token creatures dies, we get to make a dinosaur with power and toughness equal to the dead creature's power. If multiple non-token creatures die, we still make one dinosaur, but its power and toughness are equal to the sum of all the power of our non-token creatures that died. Pretty good. And we can pay 2 and tap to double target creature's power until end of turn. Meaning, if we have Ghalta and Mavren attacking, it's now a 24/12 Trampler. And if it dies, we will make a 24/24 dinosaur that doesn't have Trample, but it's still a 24/24, and that's a lot. So yes, this is affected by not just the base power and power, but by the actual creature's power once we've activated the Skullspore Nexus ability. It's also worth noting that this does not say double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. Meaning we can use this politically, or just as a surprise. We could say, hey, opponent A, I know you want to attack opponent B, but you're afraid you're not going to be able to kill the thing they're obviously going to block with. I will double your attacking creature's power if you attack them, and maybe just don't attack me. We can make deals like that. But we don't have to make the deal. We can say, all right, my opponent is attacking my other opponent with something really big. After blocks, I want to make sure that whatever has blocked their most threatening thing dies. Or I want to make sure that the most threatening thing that's attacking dies. So I'm going to double the power of the blocker. We can play with the Skullspore Nexus an awful lot, because just for 2 mana, it can either be helpful to us, or it can be helpful to us via someone else. Pretty great. So that covers our Go Tall section. Supplementing it, we have some cards that pump up our creatures, which we've seen some of already. Horn of Valhalla, of course. If we equip it to something, it gets +1/+1 for each creature we control. Next, we have Hunter's Talent from Bloomburrow. This is a class enchantment, which means we cast it for 1 and a green, and it enters and it has this first ability, and we're level 1. At sorcery speed, we can pay 1 and a green and go to level 2, which means it will have this and this ability. Both of them will be text on the card. At level 2, we can pay 3 and a green, level up to level 3, and now it has all of these sections at the same time. So here's what it does. Level 1 is, when it enters, target creature we control deals damage equal to its power to target creature we don't control. That's just a bite effect. Pretty good, it's removal. At level 2, we have an attack trigger. So whenever we attack, target attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Because that's an attack trigger, we can stack the triggers in such a way so that our Ghalta and Mavren trigger resolves after our Hunter's Talent trigger. So if we're going with the Ghalta side, we can give one of our attacking creatures +1/+0 until end of turn, plus trample. And then, if we're doing the Ghalta mode, that creature, its power is now 1 bigger than it would have been. So if it's our biggest creature, or is now our biggest creature, the tapped and attacking trampling dinosaur creature token that we make with our commander is also 1 bigger power and toughness, since it's based on the power of the creature once the Ghalta and Mavren trigger resolves. I hope that made sense. For level 3, at the beginning of our end step, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, we draw a card. So that's great repeatable card advantage. Beastmaster Ascension is next. This card is so much fun, especially in a go-wide deck. 2 and a green for an enchantment that says, whenever a creature we control attacks, you may put a quest counter on this enchantment. We don't have to, but we're going to. And that means whenever a creature you control, not whenever any number of creatures you control. So if we attack with a bunch of creatures, we're going to get a bunch of counters on it at the same moment. Or I mean, it'll trigger multiple times, but we'll get them all on before we go to blocks. And then, as long as this enchantment has 7 or more counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. That doesn't mean just our attacking creatures, that doesn't mean until end of turn. If we play Beastmaster Ascension and then attack with 7 creatures, we're going to have this ability trigger 7 times, and once that's done, all of our creatures, including the ones that are attacking, are now +5/+5, and will remain that way as long as Beastmaster Ascension is on the battlefield, or, I mean, I suppose someone could remove counters from it. I don't think that's likely to happen, but there you go. Next is King Darien. Am I crazy? Is this the 48th? Yeah, King Darien the 48th. 1, a green and a white for a 2/3 legendary human soldier that gives all of our other creatures +1/+1. Everything gets bigger. And for 3, a green and a white, we can put a 1/1 counter on King Darien and make a 1/1 white green soldier creature token. So this gets bigger and makes more tokens and makes all of our other creatures bigger. And we can sacrifice the king to give all of our creature tokens hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So pretty nice. Protects them from everything other than exile-based board wipes or, I don't know, like a mass bounce, like Cyclonic Rift, that sort of thing. Doesn't protect them against everything, but sacrifice the king and all of his subjects are probably going to live. Pretty good. Next, we've seen the Dragon Throne. It can pump up all of our creatures based on whatever it's equipped to. Felidar Retreat is next. For 3 and a white, we get an enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land we control enters, we either make a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or we put a 1/1 counter on each of our creatures, and they all gain vigilance until end of turn. So I mentioned not that much in the way of counters in this deck, but we do have some, and it's all here pumping our things up. So we can make all of our things bigger, or we can add to our board. So Mavren side of things, Ghalta side of things. Friendly Neighborhood from the Spider-Man set is next. 3 and a white for an aura that would enchant one of our lands. When it enters, we make 3 1/1 green and white human creature citizen tokens. So we make 3 friends, And the land has, if we pay 1 into it and tap that land, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature we control, but only as a sorcery. So we can't use this as like a combat trick, but we sure can make something really big as long as we're willing to spend 2 mana, essentially paying 1 mana and tapping the land that we, could have otherwise used for mana. But it comes with 3 friends, so not bad. We've seen Renata. Renata puts a counter on all of our creatures. We haven't seen Maha, Bredegard Protector. Maha is from Kaldheim. 2, a green and double white for a 2/3 legendary human warrior that gives all of our creatures, other than Maha, +1/+1, and has landfall whenever a land we control enters. Make a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. So this is almost a little bit like Felidar Retreat, because even though it's landfall, make a 1/1, those 1/1s are getting +1/+1. So it's landfall, make a 2/2 as long as Maha's still out, and Maha gives that Anthem effect to all of our creatures. Next, we're running Mirari's Wake, because it's only $6.50. It's not bad. 3, a green and a white, for an enchantment that gives all of our creatures +1/+1, and whenever we tap a land for mana, we add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So we get even more mana. This is great for ramp, it's great to pump up all of our things. Mirari's Wake, totally worth running. Overwhelming Stampede is one of our finishers. 3 and double green for a sorcery that, until end of turn, gives all of our creatures trample and +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. If, again, Ghalta and Mavren are in play, we've just given everything +12/+12 and trample, which hopefully wins us the game. Vivian Reed is next, one of my favorite Planeswalker cards. 3 and double green for a 5 loyalty Vivian Planeswalker that, for +1, lets us look at the top 4 cards of our library. We can reveal a creature or land from among them and put it in our hand and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So we can either draw ourselves a creature or draw ourselves a land. Even if we're just getting an extra land in hand every turn, that's us drawing a card and making sure we don't miss our land drops. We can also -3 Vivian to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Or if our opponents are wise enough to let us get up to 8 loyalty, we can -8 Vivian and get an emblem that gives all of our creatures +2/+2, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. This wins games. Our opponents will never let us get there unless they're too focused on their own things to stop us from winning the game. Next is a Room from Duskmourn. The way this works is this is an enchantment, but it's a split card. So when we cast it, we choose to cast either the Dollmaker Shop side or the Porcelain Gallery side. These are called doors. And let's say we choose to cast Dollmaker Shop. We will cast this. The spell on the stack is mana value 2, it's 1 and a white, and the card will enter the battlefield with this door unlocked and this door locked, meaning only this text is active for us. If, at sorcery speed, we wish to, we can unlock the Porcelain Gallery by paying its cost. And now, both sides are unlocked, and so both sides are active. Usually that's the way we're going to do it. We're going to play it earlier on as Dollmaker Shop, but if we don't draw it until later and we have the mana, we can always play Porcelain Gallery first and then unlock the Dollmaker Shop later if we want. So Dollmaker Shop says whenever 1 or more non-toy creatures you could control attack a player, create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. So we have to attack with creatures that aren't toys, at least one, and we have to attack a player rather than a planeswalker or a battle or something. So this makes us little artifact friends, little 1/1 tokens to make our board a little wider. Porcelain Gallery says creatures we control have base power and toughness, each equal to the number of creatures you control. So that overwrites the base power and toughness of all of our creatures. Not so great if we've only got 10 creatures in play and Ghalta and Mavren's one of them. It makes them into a 10/10. But pretty nice if all those other creatures are 1/1s, because now they're 10/10s. So yeah, Porcelain Gallery is here to pump up everything, and also to make us little friends every time we attack. We've seen the Endrise Forerunners, makes all of our stuff bigger as its overrun effect, and we've seen Skullspore Nexus, it makes target creature's power doubled until end of turn when we activate it. That covers our pump section, and everything that we're contributing for Ghalta. Let's talk now about what we're doing for Mavren Fane. This is how we go wide. We start with Reese the Redeemed. Reese is a 1/1 legendary elf warrior for a Selesnya mana, either a green or a white. we can pay 2 and a green or white and tap Reese to make a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token. So 3 mana to repeatably make a 1/1. That's fine. Or 6 mana, 4 and double green, double white, or one of each, and tap. For each creature token we control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So we double the number of creature tokens we have. That doesn't carry over any counters they may have on them, but if we've got 6 creature tokens, we now have 12 creature tokens. If we do it again next turn, we have 24 creature tokens. Gets better and better. Grand Crescendo is next from the Nuka Penna Commander product. X and double white for an instant that says create X 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens, and all of our creatures, not just the ones we created or not just our tokens, gain indestructible until end of turn. So we can cast this for X equals 0, and it will make no creature tokens, but it will still give all of our creatures indestructible until end of turn, just for double white. So a good protective spell, but also a way for us to use up our mana if we have a bunch of it left over at instant speed, or surprise our opponents with blockers. Either way. We've seen Horn of Valhalla, how its Isgard's Call lets us make a bunch of soldier tokens in sort of a similar way to Grand Crescendo, albeit at sorcery speed. Adeline, whenever we attack, whether or not it's with Adeline, we'll make a 1/1 human that's tapped at attacking each opponent or one of their planeswalkers. Next is Battle for Bredegard from Kaldheim. 1 a green and a white for a saga. Sagas work like this. When it enters, and at the start of our pre-combat main phase, our first main phase, it gets a lore counter, and whatever ability has not yet triggered that corresponds with the number of lore counters triggers. So it first enters when we cast it, and we get a lore counter, and it triggers Chapter 1. Next turn, at the start of our first main, we'll get another lore counter, and we'll trigger Chapter 2. On the turn after that, at the start of our first main phase, we'll get our third lore counter. It will trigger this ability, and once this ability has resolved, we sacrifice Battle for Bredegard. It just goes to the graveyard. So it tells us a little story, and then the story ends. So, Chapter 1 is we make a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Chapter 2 is we make a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. And Chapter 3, we choose any number of artifact tokens and or creature tokens we control with different names. For each of them, we make a token that's a copy of it. So it's not exactly the same as Reese. For Reese, it's just every creature token we make a copy. For Battle of Bredegard, if we have 2 of these green and white elf warrior creature tokens, we're only going to make 1 more of them because they're both the same as each other. Battle for Bredegard is making 1 more of every type of token. But this is a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token, and Reese makes a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token. They are the same thing as far as we're concerned because they have the same name. So we get to choose which one we're making a copy of if we have both. We can make either the green one or the green and white one, either way. All we care about is different names. However, Battle for Bredegard does make extra artifact tokens, so if we have something like Treasure in play, we can make more of those. Next is Halo Fountain. 2 and a white for an artifact that says pay a white and tap it, and untap target creature you control. Untap target tapped creature you control. This is part of the cost. If we do that, we make a citizen, a 1/1 green and white human creature. 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. So we attack, and then we pay a white and tap the Halo Fountain and untap that creature, and it's like that creature had vigilance. We can do this on an opponent's turn if we want to, not just to make the token creature, but to untap one of our creatures. Pretty good. Surprise blockers. Or for double white, tap and untap 2 target creatures we control, we can draw a card. So we can use this the same way I was just mentioning and get card draw off of it as well. And if we do 5 white, tap this and untap 15 tapped creatures we control, we win the game. So it's not far off for us to get to this. It's actually pretty easy for us to get up to 15 creatures. Then all we have to do is attack with 5 white mana open, and we win. Halo Fountain is very nice. We've seen King Darien. King Darien makes us some soldiers if we want to pay 5 into them. Muster the Departed is next from Modern Horizons 3. 2 and a white for an enchantment that says when it enters, we make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Get one of those things. And it has a morbid trigger. At the start of our end step, if a creature died this turn, Doesn't have to be a non-token creature. It doesn't have to be a creature we controlled. At the beginning of our end step, if a creature died this turn, we populate, which means we choose any of our tokens that's a creature, and then we make a copy of that. We make a second token. So this gives us, in all likelihood, at least one more token at the end of every turn. And it makes it so we are rewarded for our attacks, because even if we trade, even if we lose creatures, we're going to be able to make more of them as we go. Next for us, we've seen Queen All in All, how she makes an extra soldier token every time we would create tokens in another way. Next we have Scoot Swarm. 2 and a green for a 1/1 insect with landfall that says when a land enters, make a 1/1 green insect. But if you control 6 or more lands, meaning if that land you played is your 6th land or more than that, instead you make a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm. So the reason that's distinct, in case you haven't noticed it, is because if you make a copy of Scoot Swarm, it also has this ability. So let's say we play a land, and then we have another way to play another land. If that first land was our 6th land, or later, we make a copy of Scoot Swarm. Then we play a second land, it will trigger the Scoot Swarm and the copy of Scoot Swarm. So now we have 2 more copies of Scoot Swarm. There's a total of 4 Scoot Swarms. Next turn, we play a land. They all trigger. Now we have 8 Scoots, and 16, and 32, and 64. And we make more and more and more Scoots, and it just gets out of hand. There are always more Scoot bugs. If you played with Scoot Swarm, Zendikar Rising Standard, you know this is a dangerous card. And it's great for that reason, because it's kind of kill on sight. People are traumatized by playing against Scoot Swarm. So if your opponents are wasting their removal spells to try and kill your Scoot, or hopefully you played your Scoot and then played your 6th land right away, or subsequent one, they're trying to kill multiple Scoots, and it's just going to get out of hand. Either they're wasting all their removal on your little 1/1 creatures, or you're ending up with a whole lot of Scoots, and it doesn't matter that they're 1/1s because you have a million of them. Next, we have Tempt with Bunnies from Bloomborough Commander. 2 and a white for a sorcery with Tempting Offer. We draw a card and we make a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. Then each opponent may do the same thing, and for each opponent that does, we do it again. So we might, with 3 opponents, end up with all of them drawing a card and getting a rabbit, and we draw a total of 4 cards and get 4 rabbits. Pretty good. Will of the Mardu from Dragonstorm Commander is next. 2 and a white for an instant that says we can choose one of the 2, but if we control a commander as we cast Will of the Mardu, we can choose both. The reason it says as you cast this means if we cast Will of the Mardu, we have to choose our modes right then, and if someone before Will of the Mardu resolves kills our commander, we still get to do both. So the first is create a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures that target player controls. We can target ourselves with that. If we've got 10 or 15 creatures, we make 10 or 15 red warriors. If someone else has more than us, we target them, and we get that many. And Will of the Mardu deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures we control. So this is, hopefully, going to be able to kill anything on the board, especially since, if we've chosen both, they resolve in order, or the spell resolves, and then these effects happen in order. So we'll make a bunch of warriors, and then we'll do damage based on the new creature count that we have to some creature. So hopefully, this for 3 mana in white kills anything, assuming it doesn't have, hexproof, ward, shroud, indestructible, whatever it may be, and gives us a bunch of friends that we can use to get our even more triggers, Mavren style, from our commander. Arasta of the Endless Web is next. I really like Arasta. I put her in every deck I can put her in just because I've only had good experiences with her. For 2 and double green, we get a 3/5 legendary enchantment creature spider with reach. And whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So this just deals with flyers that our opponents may be sending at us. It makes it so we get plenty of little tokens that we can attack with to trigger Ghalta and Mavren on Mavren's version. And it triggers on instants and sorceries that our opponents cast, but it doesn't have to target our creatures, it doesn't have to be on our turn. It can be anytime anyone casts an instant or sorcery. Somebody casts Cultivate, we get a spider. Somebody casts Path to Exile on another person's commander, we get a spider. Pretty good. We've seen Feldar Retreat and how it can give us the cat beasts. That helps us go wide. Friendly Neighborhood comes in and makes 3 citizens, goes wide. I want to mention these are human citizens as opposed to the New Capenna citizens, which are just citizens, even though they're both 1/1s and they're green and white. These are human citizens, so different name, which can be relevant for Battle for Bredegard. Next up, we have Iron Will Forger. 3 and a white for a 3/3 Orc Artificer with Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on our turn, if we control our commander, target non-legendary creature we control gains Myriad until end of turn. So we can't target our commander with this because our commander, of course, is legendary. But we can put this on something else. And when we do, we're going to get Myriad tokens, those tapped and attacking copies of the attacking creature that will last until end of combat, that are all going at different players or a planeswalker they control. So a nice way for us to get, extra scoots perhaps, extra bunnies, whatever it may be. We've seen Sumala Rumblers. It's got Myriad on its own. Boss's Chauffeur, when it dies, makes a whole bunch of little citizens. Maha makes more and more and more 1/1 human warriors every time we have landfall. Rabble Rousing is next. Really love New Capenna. 4 and a white for an enchantment with Hideaway 5. Hideaway means when this comes in, we look at the top 5 cards of our library, we exile one of them face down under Rabble Rousing, and we take the rest and put them on the bottom of our library in a random order. Rabble Rousing then says, when we attack with 1 or more creatures, just whenever we attack, we make that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. No matter how many creatures we're attacking with, we just suddenly magically create that many citizens as well. Similarly, although not exactly the same as the way that Mavren's side of Ghalta and Mavren works. Because it doesn't matter, it only counts how many creatures we're attacking with. And then, as part of the same ability, if we then control 10 or more creatures, which means we attacked with 5, we may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Which means if we have a land drop left to make, we can make that land drop. Actually, that's not true, because this is as part of the same resolution. So even if we haven't made our land drop, if we hit a land under the Rabble Rousing, it's not coming out, because we can only make a land drop at sorcery speed. However, if there's a spell under it, which hopefully there is, and it's hopefully the best spell we saw in this Hideaway 5, we're going to get to cast it for free as part of this resolution. And then, even though that's pretty great, a free spell, this is what we care about for Rabble Rousing. This is worth 5 mana, just being able to double all of our creatures that are attacking every time. The citizens we make are not themselves attacking, but we don't need them to. They can wait until next turn, and we can double them again. That covers Rabble Rousing. We've seen Scion of Calamity. It has Myriad. Underseller Sweep is next. Underseller Sweep is 4 and a white for an enchantment that says when this enchantment enters, you take the initiative. We'll talk about the initiative in a moment. It also says whenever you attack, if you or a player attacking has the initiative, you create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. So either when we attack, if we have the initiative, or if we're attacking a player with the initiative, we're going to make 2 soldiers that are tapped and attacking. Pretty good. Now the question is, what is the initiative? Well, the initiative is a little bit of a complicated mechanic, but it's not ultimately that bad. This is the initiative. It means whenever we take the initiative and at the beginning of our upkeep, we venture into the Undercity, which is this dungeon. We take a little marker, we put it on the first entrance, and every other time we venture into it, which is again, when we take the initiative or at the start of our upkeep while we have the initiative, we move our marker to the next little room. We can't go sideways, we can only go from top to bottom. Obviously, if we're at the secret entrance and we go to the forge, we can't then go to the stash because the forge only lets us go to the arena or the trap. But that's how it works. And then, after the last one, our marker has left the dungeon. If we then venture into the dungeon again, into the Undercity, because we're taking the initiative again, or because it's our upkeep now and we already have the initiative, we will go right back to the secret entrance. So yes, the secret entrance, of course, is just lay of the land. Search your library for a basic, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. I'm only mentioning that because when we cast Undercity Sweep, we're immediately going to take the initiative. end up in the secret entrance and get that. So we're going to get to draw a basic. Pretty all right. The only other thing to know about the initiative is whenever we one or more creatures deals combat damage to someone with the initiative, the controller of those creatures takes the initiative. So we can take the initiative on our turn, or we can have the initiative when our turn starts if no one took it from us. So that's how Understellar Sweep works. We are in a different part of the page. Here we go. So in any case, when it comes in, we're going to draw ourselves a basic because we're going to go to the first room of the Undercity. And then whenever we attack, we'll make 2 1/1 soldiers that are tapped and attacking, since we will probably do that the same turn that we played Understellar Sweep. And we'll get those tokens as well if we're attacking someone who has the initiative because they've taken it from us, or maybe they had a card that let them take it anyway. Next up is Visions of Glory. 4 and a white for a sorcery that makes a 1/1 white human creature token for each creature we control. So we just count up our number of creatures, double the size of our board, make it with 1/1s. It also has flashback for 8 and double white, but it costs X less, where 8 is the greatest mana value of a commander we own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Our commander is a 7-drop, so this is going to cost us 3 mana, a single 1 and 2 white. So we could, if we have 8 mana, do this twice in a row. Cast it the first time and then immediately flash it back, making a 1/1 for all of our creatures in play, and then making another 1/1 for all of our creatures in play, including that first section of 1/1s. We can quadruple our board size. And yes, that's 8 mana, which is only 1 more than our commander. Just saying. We then attack with a bunch of stuff. I'm just saying. We got lots of things we can do here. Crash the Party makes us tapped 4/4 rhinos based on the number of tapped creatures we control. Requiem Angel, of course, makes us a spirit that for every time one of our non-spirits dies. Silverwing Squadron makes a number of 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents we have whenever it attacks. Dollmaker's Shop, whenever we attack with something that isn't a toy, with any number of creatures that is, as long as they're not 100% toys, we get a 1/1 toy. And Aziri's Predation makes us a 4/4 for every creature our opponents control, and maybe some of them will survive after they all fight those creatures. So that covers all of our Go Wide cards, which is to say, that covers our game plan. We're going to talk about the cards that we have that support our game plan before we talk about any supplemental ones. So we're going to start with our card advantage section, which, as usual, I've used the word draw as just a shorthand to represent card advantage. It doesn't mean that all of these cards are going to draw us cards. So we start with Bushwhack, a card that I love. 1 green for a sorcery that lets us either Lay of the Land, search for a basic, put it in our hand, and then shuffle. We have to reveal it, of course. Or we can have one of our creatures fight a creature we don't control. We find a bush, or we whack something. Great. Good removal, good card draw. That's what we want. Skull Clamp is next. We're running this in our tokens deck because we have so many tokens with a toughness of 1. For a single mana, we get an equipment that equips for 1 and gives equipped creature +1/-1. But why would we put this on an X1? It will die immediately. Well, whenever equipped creature dies, we draw 2 cards, which means after we cast the Skull Clamp, as long as we have tokens with a toughness of 1, Skull Clamp says, pay 1, sacrifice that creature, draw 2 cards. It's not really a sacrifice effect, but it works out to be the same. We're paying 1 and losing one of our X1 tokens and drawing 2. We can keep doing that as many times as we have mana and X1 tokens. Skull Clamp is great. And if we really want to, we could put this on a bigger creature, attack with it. It's going to have +1/-1. Maybe it doesn't kill that creature. Maybe that creature's doing more damage because it has trample. Maybe we've put it on one of our dinosaur tokens that our commander has made. Who knows? And then when that token dies, we'll also draw 2 cards. Skull Clamp is a little bit versatile, but it doesn't have to be that versatile when it's so powerful. We've seen Hunter's Talon, and its first level ability, of course, is a bite effect, so that is removal. But its 3rd chapter is repeatable card draw, as long as we have something with power 4 or greater, which is not hard in this deck, as you've seen. Idol of Oblivion, of course, draws us a card Every turn we tap it if we've already made a token that turn. Not hard to do. Colossal Majesty is next. 2 and a green for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So that is to contrast with the 3rd chapter of Hunter's Challenge, which triggers during our end step, but otherwise, same idea. If we've got both, we're drawing 2 extra cards every turn. Next is Garruk's Uprising. Of course, I'm going to use the Wilds of Eldraine Enchanting Tales printing. 2 and a green for an enchantment that says creatures you control have trample. That's great. Just all of our creatures, all the time, have trample. And Garruk's Uprising has 2 ways to draw us cards. If we control a creature with power 4 or greater when this enters, we draw a card. Once it's entered, whenever one of our creatures with power 4 or greater enters, we draw a card. So it's reciprocal there. Nice, repeatable card draw. Growing Rites of Itlamok is next. This is a legendary enchantment for 2 and a green that says when it enters, we look at the top 4 cards of our library. We may reveal a creature card from among them and put it in our hand, assuming we find a creature card, which is not hard to do. Then we put the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order. So for 3 mana, we get an enchantment, it comes in, and hopefully draws us a creature card. It's not a draw effect, but you know. And then, at the beginning of our end step, if we control 4 or more creatures, they can be tokens. We transform the Growing Rites of Itlamok into Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun, which is a legendary land that taps for green, or we can tap it to make a green for each creature we control. It's Gaia's Cradle. It's incredible. This is a very powerful spell and very powerful other side of it. And we're using the Lost Caverns version because look at these little mushroom guys. Pretty great. We've seen Halo Fountain, how it can make us have several things happen, but one of them is if we pay 2 white, tap it, and untap rather, 2 tapped creatures we control, we can draw a card. So repeatable card draw every turn for just 2 mana. Next is Lauren of the Third Path. She is my favorite Reclamation Sage. 2 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human artificer with vigilance. When she enters, she disenchants something. She destroys an artifact or an enchantment. And every turn, when she doesn't have summoning sickness, we can tap her, and then we and one of our opponents each draw a card. So we do that for whichever opponent it is least offensive to us for them to draw a card, or we can make a deal. We can say, hey, look, I can have anyone draw a card. I'm going to have someone probably, but I also am not hurting for cards myself, so I don't have to do this. What will you give me if I let you draw a card versus other opponent? So yeah, Lauren is a great one. Also, if you're interested, I just recently posted a video called The Toy Maker on my channel about Lauren's husband, Felden of the Third Path, which is all about him trying to bring back his wife Lauren. So if you're interested in a little bit of a holiday deck and a nice story, check out that video. I'll link it in the video's description. Next is Rumor Gatherer, also from Streets of New Capenna. 1 and double white for a 2/1 elf wizard with Alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, scry 1. And if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card instead. Which means, with the Rumor Gatherer in play, one of our creatures enters, we scry. The next creature that enters, we draw. Every subsequent creature that enters that turn, we scry again. So the drawing only happens the second time, not every other time. But it does reset every turn. So every turn when we have creatures come in, if we have 2 come in at the same time, it will trigger twice. The first resolution will scry, and the second one will draw for us. We've seen Tempt with Bunnies. It's 3 mana for us to draw a card and make a rabbit. At least, we might be drawing more cards off of that if our opponents also want to draw cards and make rabbits. And then we'll get cards and rabbits too. Next we have Elven Chorus. 3 and a green for an enchantment from Lord of the Rings that says we may look at the top card of our library at any time, and we can cast creature spells from the top of our library. This, together, is not drawing a card, but it does give us access to cards that aren't in our hand, and it can give us access to multiple cards during the same turn, so that is card advantage. It also gives all of our creatures tap to add 1 mana of any color, so great ramp as well. We've seen these last 3. Rabble Rousing, of course. Every time we attack, we make a number of citizens equal to the number of attacking creatures we have. Underseller Sweep. Whenever we attack, if we are attacking the person with the initiative, or we have the initiative, we make 2 tapped and attacking 1/1s. And of course, Vivian can... I'm sorry, that's not really... Neither of these are really helpful for drawing in that way. Rabble Rousing lets us have card advantage because when we attack, if we have 10 or more creatures, after its first half of the ability is resolved, we get to cast the Hideaway card for free. So that's a free spell. Understellar Sweep, gives us the initiative, which draws us a land. And Vivian Reed, of course, for her +1 ability, lets us look at the top 4 and find a creature or land to put it in our hand. So card advantage there. That covers that section. Let's talk about our acceleration section, which again I've just shorthanded as ramp. Soul Ring is obvious. For 1 mana, it's an artifact that taps for 2 colorless mana. That's all it needs to do. That's extremely powerful. We're going to put that in here. A similar auto-include is Arcane Signet. For 2 generic mana, we get an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So that is to say, in this deck, it's a 2 mana rock that taps for white or for green. Pretty easy. Comes in untapped. We like that. Cryptolith Rite is next. 1 and a green for an enchantment that lets all of our creatures tap for mana of any color. It's the same thing that Elven Chorus does for us, but without the ability to look at the top of our library and cast creature spells off of it. So having a redundancy in this effect is excellent. It lets us take all of our tokens and make them into mana producers. Farseek is next. Farseek is 1 and a green for a sorcery that lets us search our library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. In our deck, we can only look for a plains, which means we can find a basic plains, but we have a couple of lands that are dual typed, that are both plains and mountains, plains and forests in our land base. If you wanted to upgrade this deck, you could put even more in if you wanted to. But Farseek is one of our rampant growths. It lets us go find one of our dual plains, if we have any left, or just a basic plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. We're also running Nature's Lore, which is the same thing, except it finds a forest, rather than anything that's not a forest. So why is Farseek 70 cents and Nature's Lore is $3.50? Because Nature's Lore doesn't say put that card onto the battlefield tapped. We can find ourselves a dual land that's a forest, or just a regular forest, a basic forest, put it on the battlefield untapped, and then shuffle, assuming it would have come to the battlefield untapped on its own. So yeah, Nature's Lore, more powerful than Farseek, but both are great in this deck. Enduring Vitality is next. 2 and double green for a 3/3 creature with Vigilance, an enchantment creature, an Elk Glimmer. And it gives all of our creatures the ability to tap for 1 mana of any color. It's Cryptolith Rite or Elven Chorus again. Worth having. And when Enduring Vitality dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and it's an enchantment, meaning it's no longer a creature. So Enduring Vitality is a 3/3 Vigilance, and if someone kills it without exiling it, which is not killing it, if it dies however it dies, it'll come back as just an enchantment doing this. It'll be just Cryptolith Rite for us. Pretty okay. We've seen Growing Rites of Itlimoc and how it can flip over into Itlimoc Cradle of the Sun and tap for mana equal to our creature count. Topiary Stomper enters and rampant growths us. Mirari's Wake lets our lands tap for mana, for 2 mana every time we tap them. Elven Chorus lets us do the Cryptolith Rite thing. And then Buried in the Garden is 2, a green and a white, for an aura that enchants a land. We've got another one of these. When it enters, we exile target non-land permanent we don't control until this aura leaves the battlefield. So that's to say, it's Banishing Light. It's a removal spell. And whenever the enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. So it fixes mana in addition to doubling the mana that land taps for. Pretty good. I know you're thinking, well, what if we tap a land enchanted with Buried in the Garden while Mirari's Wake is in play? Then it makes 3, it doesn't make 4. Don't worry. Mirari's Wake adds 1 mana, so does Buried in the Garden. Neither of them double the amount of mana, just taps for 3 at that point. Buried in the Garden, though, very nice. I remember this being a thing people would do in Standard. It was really annoying. So that's our acceleration section. Let's talk about our interaction, which again, I just shorthand as removal. Bushwhack is 1 mana to have one of our creatures fight something else. Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares are almost identical cards. They're both instants, they both cost a single white, they both exile a target creature, and they both give a kickback to the creature's controller. Swords to Plowshares gives that creature's controller life equal to the creature's power, and Path to Exile lets that creature's controller rampant growth. Search for a basic, put that basic on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Obviously, Swords to Plowshares is better, but both are very good and both are in our deck. Hunter's Talent enters, and Chapter 1, like I mentioned twice now, bites one of our opponent's creatures. Emergency Eject is next. If you haven't seen me talk about Emergency Eject before, I prefer this to something like Generous Gift because I'm not trying to hit lands. So Emergency Eject is 2 and a white to destroy a non-land permanent, and its controller creates a Lander token, which is an artifact that if they pay 2 tap and sack it, they get to Rampant Growth. So I like this better than Generous Gift and better than Stroke of Midnight, which is just Generous Gift, but it makes a 1/1 and can't hit lands. So I'd rather not give them a creature that they could block with. I'd rather give them an artifact that they have to use, they have to pay their mana into to get a tapped land. Comparable to Path of Exile in that way. It costs 3 times as much, of course, but it can hit anything other than lands. Doesn't exile, but rather than them getting a Rampant Growth on their own, they've got to pay for it. Yeah, I think it's a good inclusion. Lorn of the Third Path enters and disenchants an artifact or enchantment. Good removal there. Will of the Mardu lets us kill a creature, almost certainly. Buried in the Garden lets us exile a non-land permanent. Scion of Calamity, when it does damage, or one of its myriad tokens does damage, it will disenchant or naturalize something of the defending player. And Vivian, of course, lets us -3 her to destroy an artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. That covers our interaction. We are running 2 Wraths in this deck. We've already seen Izuri's Predation and how it can kill quite a few things, not necessarily everything, but the same is true of Hour of Reckoning. It doesn't kill everything, but it kills a lot. For 4 and triple white, we have a sorcery that destroys all non-token creatures. So we have a lot of creatures that are tokens and a lot of creatures that aren't. Being able to lose many of our creatures, but not most of them, while the rest of our opponents are losing most of their creatures, but maybe not all of them, is a pretty good trade-off. In addition, Hour of Reckoning has Convoke. So if we are already past combat and we want to convoke this, or if we're not planning to go to combat with a bunch of things, or if we have a bunch of tokens that are summoning sick, we can still tap them with Convoke and blow up everything our opponents have. That isn't a token creature, of course. So that covers our Wraths. Let's take a look at some of our supplemental categories. We only have a few for this deck. These are our Payoffs. Payoffs are cards that benefit when our deck does the thing it's supposed to do, including all of our cards that say for each creature you control and for the number of creatures. For example, Burrowguard Mentor has power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control. Horn of Valhalla gives equipped creature +1/+1 for each creature we control. Idol of Oblivion lets us draw cards every time we make a token. Or not every time, but every turn we have made a token. Adeline has power equal to the number of creatures we control. Colossal Majesty rewards us for having something power 4 or greater, as does Garruk's Uprising. Both of them let us draw cards for that. Growing Rights cares about us having a lot of creatures and makes a lot of mana based on us having a lot of creatures. Queen All in All, again, like the Burrowguard Mentor, has that power and toughness based on the number of creatures we control. Will of the Mardu makes a number of 1/1s equal to the number of creatures we control, or target player controls. It might not be us, but it probably will be. Friendly Neighborhood lets us tap the enchanted land after we pay a mana into it to give it a boost based on the number of creatures we control. The same as Horn of Valhalla gives constantly. Sumala Rumbler has a power equal to the number of creatures we control. Boss's Chauffeur becomes bigger the more creatures we have, and then makes us a lot of creatures when it dies. Overwhelming Stampede gives all of our creatures trample and a power and toughness bonus equal to the greatest power among our creatures, so that's probably going to be 12, but maybe not. Maybe even more. Rabble Rousing, of course, doubles our the creatures we have attacking, and cares about all the creatures we have. Visions of Glory cares about the number of creatures we control, and can do that twice. Crash the Party cares about the number of tapped weak creatures we control. Porcelain Gallery gives all of our creatures base power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control. And Skullspore Nexus, of course, lets us cast it for cheaper based on the greatest power we have. So all of these are payoffs for having big things or a lot of things. So that covers our payoff section. Let's talk about our evasion section. These are ways for our creatures to get past our opponent's defenses. We've seen all of these. Hunter's Talent, level 2, gives one of our creatures +1/+0 and trample until end of turn. Trample's classic evasion. Champion of Lambhold, as we've talked about, makes many of our creatures unblockable, if not all of them, depending on how big it gets. Garrick's Uprising gives all of our creatures trample. Dragon Throne of Tarkir can give all of our creatures trample. Overwhelming Stampede gives all of our creatures trample. This is all of our creatures. Dragon Throne is all of our other creatures beyond what's equipped to. Vivian Reed, we can get that emblem, give all of our creatures Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible, and +2/+2. And of course, the Angry Bacon gives +2/+2 Vigilance and Trample when it enters to all of our creatures. That's all of our Evasion cards. We have a few cards to protect us. There we go. Grand Crescendo for double white gives all of our creatures indestructible, and then anything we put into X makes that many tokens first. King Darien can be sacrificed to give all of our tokens hexproof and indestructible, our creature tokens that is. And Vivian, of course, can protect our things if we get that emblem off, and give all of our creatures indestructible. Finally, we have our finishers section, which we've seen all of them. Endray's Forerunners and Overwhelming Stampede and Dragon Throne of Tarkir make our creatures bigger, give them trample, give them vigilance for the Endray's Forerunners, and Halo Fountain. If we can tap 15 of our creatures by hopefully attacking with them, then pay 5 white and tap the Halo Fountain, we just win the game. That's a finisher if ever I've seen one. So that covers all of our spells. As usual, let's go over our land base. We are running 18 basic lands. We're a little more heavily green than we are white, but it's not too much of a difference. They're pretty even. So we've got 18 basics, 11 forest, 7 plains. We're running Scattered Groves, which is a bicycle land. Bicycle lands are typed duels. It comes in tapped, but it is a forest and a plains, so we can find this with Farseek or Nature's Lore if we want to. Probably better to find it with Farseek because it's going to come in tapped no matter what. But it's a bicycle land because it is a dual buy, and we also can cycle it, which means while it's in our hand, we can pay 2 generic mana and discard it to draw a card. So if we have this late in the game and we don't need more land, we can just turn this into a different card. Next, we are running a bounce land. It's Selesnya Sanctuary. Bounce lands are great. They come in tapped, and when they do, we have to return a land we control to its owner's hand, which means if this is the first land we play, we've got to bounce it to our hand, so we don't want to do that. But it taps for 2 mana. It's not a green or a white, it's a green and a white. So the idea is we have a basic land in play, we tap that land for mana, then we play the Selesnya Sanctuary, we bounce the basic, but we get to still use that mana, and next turn, when the Selesnya Sanctuary untaps, we can tap it for mana, but also we know we're going to be able to make our land drop because we just put a basic back in our hand. We're running Sunpetal Grove. We've got 18 basics in this deck. I usually try to keep check lands in the deck only if we have 20 or more basics, but it's probably going to be fine. It comes in untapped if we control a forest or a plains, which includes Scattered Groves, because it is both a forest and a plains. That's why I put it in here, because with our bicycle land and our tango land, we have got 20 forest/plains. So yeah, it's a dual land, it's not typed, it comes in untapped if we control a forest or a plains, otherwise it's a tap land, not terrible. But it's from Ixalan, just like our commanders. Sungrass Prairie is next. This is a filter land. It comes in untapped, and it taps for both a green and a white, so 2 mana, if we pay a mana into it and tap it. So we're paying a mana in, so we're down a mana, and we're getting 2 out, so we're up 1, so it's tapping for 1, ultimately just like 1 land. Except it does fix our mana. It's just worth remembering that we can't use it at all unless we have mana to pay into it. We're running 6 fixing lands. Command Tower, of course, is an untapped duel for us. It comes in untapped, taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, just like Arcane Signet, if you want to think of it that way. So an untapped duel, pretty great. We want to run that. We're also willing to run this tapped duel of Path of Ancestry. It comes in tapped, and it does the same thing as Command Tower. But if we use that mana to cast a creature spell that shares a type with our commander, we scry 1, which of course, our commander shares creature types with itself. We have no other vampires in our deck, just the 1 vampire, which is, of course, Ghalta and Mavren. But we do have 3 other dinosaurs, so it's possible that we might be getting some scries off of those other dinosaurs, but we definitely will for Ghalta and Mavren, assuming we use Path of Ancestry mana to cast it. And a tapped duel, not terrible in a 2-color deck, especially when it can give us that little bit of extra advantage. Temple of the False God is next. This is, I know not everyone likes this card, but I think it's great for this level of deck that we're building, this sort of power level. It comes in untapped, and it taps for 2 mana. So it's a soul land. They're colorless mana. Except we can't even activate it unless we control 4 other lands or more, which is to say 5 or more lands, including itself. So not ideal if it's, one of 2 cards in our opening hand, 1 of 2 lands. We would like to have better land earlier on. But if we get this going, on turn 4 or 5, if we've got more land in play, yeah, not terrible at all. And it makes extra mana. It's ramp. We've also got 3 soft fetches. Broker's Hideout and Cabaret Courtyard are the same card in our deck. So the way this works is it enters and it automatically sacrifices itself. When it does, we can search our library for a basic forest or plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle, and we gain a life on top of it. Broker's Hideout can also find islands, and Cabaret Courtyard can also find mountains, but neither of those are relevant to our deck, and it's not a violation of the Commander color identity rules. So we put both of these in here to have fetch lands that we don't worry that much about messing with the top of our library. We've got a couple of ways of scrying. We've got Elven Chorus. So if you wanted to replace these with something like an Evolving Wilds or a Terramorphic Expanse, or even like a Fabled Passage, that would be fine. But generally, it's not something I'm worried about so often in this deck that I'd rather run those than either of these 2 Nuka-Pena Sack lands. Finally, in this section, we have Crozen Verge. This is our Myriad Landscape. It is a land that comes in taps for colorless, or we can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice it to search our library for a forest and a plains, put them on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. So even though this is coming in tapped, and we have to pay and tap it and sack it, and we get our 2 lands into play tapped, we are turning 1 land drop into 2 lands. So it's a little bit of slow ramp. In addition, Crozen Verge says a forest and a plains. It has to be one of each. They can both be basics, but they don't have to be. So we could go get that bicycle land as either our forest or our plains. It's going to come in tapped anyway, so we've gotten a land into play, and it's a dual land. So Crozen Verge helps us a lot for that. I do want to make mention as well, we have upgrade paths. I mentioned being able to upgrade, some of these fetches to something like a better fetch, like Fabled Passage. For this filter land, if we wanted to take Sungrass Prairie and make it more likely for us to be able to use it, we could have a traditional duel, like Temple Garden, the shock land, if we wanted to do that. We could take Sunpetal Grove and upgrade it to an overgrown farmland, slow land. That's much more likely to come in, or it's a bit more likely to come in untapped than our check land. But either way, those are both a little bit more expensive. We are running Brushland, which is a pain land. It taps for colorless, or it taps for green or white if we're willing to let it do a damage to us. Usually the way that this plays out is we'll tap this land for colorless, and if we really need to tap it for colored mana, it's not going to do much damage to us over the course of the game, and it's worth it to have this untapped duel make exactly the color we need. So yeah, that's pretty nice. We could also upgrade this to a shock land if we wanted to Temple Garden, because that means it's going to maybe do 2 damage to us to come in untapped, but then that's the only damage it'll do to us. Pretty okay. I like the pathways, so we're running Branchloft Pathway. This is a land that comes in untapped and taps for green, but if we play it on its backside, it's Boulderloft Pathway. And it comes in untapped and taps for white. Pretty great, because we get a land that will always tap for the color we need in that moment when we play it, and it will come in untapped for the process. As I usually point out, pathways are especially good in a deck that uses bounce lands. So let's say it's early on and we need white mana, so we play it as Boulderloft Pathway. Then we get Selesnya Sanctuary out, we play it, and we bounce the Boulderloft Pathway. Well, when we do that, we have it on our hand again, so we can replay it, and maybe now we need more green mana, so we play it as Branchloft Pathway. Just a little bit of a trick that if you're running both, it won't come up that often, but when it does, you'll be happy you got to do it. We're running Temple of Plenty, which is a scry land. It enters tapped, taps for our colors, and scries 1. So it may not scry as much as Path of Ancestry could for us, although we're hoping Path of Ancestry doesn't scry for us that much because we don't want to keep recasting our commander. But this is a guaranteed scry, so it does manipulate the top of our library a little bit and give us some card selection. We could upgrade this to Lush Portico, the Surveil land, but again, this is a 15-cent card. A Surveil land is not. Our other typed dual is Canopy Vista. This is a Tango land because it enters tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. We've got 18 basics in the library, so this may not come in untapped, but it might, especially with some of our ramp that we've been using. It's called a Tango land because it takes 2 to tango. So in any case, this is a typed dual that might come in untapped. Pretty good. Finally, we've got our 6 utility lands. I like running Demolition Field as my one answer for non-basic lands. I typically don't do land denial in my decks, but you've got to be able to have something that can deal with Glacial Chasm or Rogue's Passage against a Voltron deck or whatever else could be dangerous. Someone's got a Bossing Say and they're earthbending all over the place for you, who knows. Demolition Field comes in untapped and taps for colorless, but we can also pay 2, tap, and sack it to destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls. That land's controller may then search their library for a basic, put it on the battlefield untapped, and then shuffle, and we can do the same. So neither player is down a land, we just have basics in place of our non-basics, assuming we had basics left in our libraries, and we've been able to deal with something problematic that we didn't want to have to worry about without going really hard into spells that are powerful enough to deal with lands. Like, not that Generous Gift is super powerful, but I just like to keep the vibe away from that for most of my games. Next, we are running Fountain Port. This is great in any tokens deck. It comes in untapped, taps for colorless. We can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice a token to draw a card. So just that on its own is great. Being able to know that we can draw cards, we can turn our tokens into card advantage. Seems good. We can also pay 3 and tap it and pay a life to make a 1/1 blue fish creature token. So if we have some life lying around and some mana that we don't have anything else to do with, we can make our board a little wider. Finally, we can pay 4 and tap it to make a treasure token. So if we don't really want to pay life or we don't need more little token friends, we can just bank. It's like tapping 5 lands to have a treasure, but maybe that's worth it. So Fountain Port's very flexible for us. Next up is Mosswort Bridge and Windbrisk Heights. These are both hideaway lands. So just like Rabble Rousing, they have hideaway, but they have hideaway 4. So we just look at the top 4, exile 1 under the land, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Both of these lands come in tapped. Both tap for mana, Mosswort Bridge for green and Windbrisk Heights for white. And they both let us play the hidden away card by paying 1 mana of the color that they produce and tapping them, assuming a certain condition's met. Mosswort Bridge is the Ghalta card. We can pay a green and tap it to play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if creatures we control have total power 10 or greater. That's super not hard to do in this deck, especially if we've got, 10 little 1/1 tokens. Windbrisk Heights lets us pay a white and tap to play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if we attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn. As long as we declared them as attackers, we have attacked. It doesn't have to be after combat that we do this. We can do it during combat if we want to. Pretty good. Next, we're running Restless Prairie from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Gotta have another Ixalan card. It is a land that enters tapped. It taps for either of our colors, and if we pay 2, a green and a white, it will become a 3/3 green and white llama creature until end of turn, and it's still a land. At time of recording, this is the only llama in Magic, and you can see it here. Really cool. In addition to just being a creature land, whenever it attacks, all of our creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. It's not a counter, but it is a little bit of a pump, and that's pretty nice. We can stack this trigger with our commander's trigger if we're going the Ghalta way and making a dinosaur, so that our dinosaur is a little bigger in the process. Pretty good. Or if we want to, if we want to make a bunch of vampires with Ghalta and Mavren and then pump them up, even though they're not attacking, we could do that too, I suppose. Yeah. Finally, we're running Rogue's Passage because we have a 12/12 trampling commander. Rogue's Passage comes in untapped and taps for colorless. We can also pay a 4 and tap it to make one of our creatures unblockable until end of turn. So that's terrific for something huge like Ancient Imperiosaur or Ghalta and Mavren, but we can also do an opponent's creature. Doesn't say target creature you control. So not likely to happen a lot, but if we say, hey, opponent A, opponent B, I know you want to swing in and kill them, They'll be like, yeah, I really do, but they've got a lot of blockers. We can say, okay, well, swing in, and I'll use Rogue's Passage to make it so you can't be blocked. Your creature can't be blocked. As long as you leave me alone for a turn cycle after that. That's a pretty good deal. As long as we don't use Rogue's Passage before they declare attacks, because then they could attack us with that creature unblockably. We don't want that to happen. But most of the time, people will go for that deal if we offer it to them. So usually Rogue's Passage is in the deck for our own creatures, but we sure can use it politically if we want to. And like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be a deal we've made. It could be we see what's happening. Our opponent A attacks opponent B, and they're expecting some trades, but we see that it might be better for us if one of their creatures is not blockable. We can say, all right, before blocks, I have an effect. I'm going to make opponent A's, one creature unblockable, and then opponent B will go, oh no, because we wouldn't do that if they weren't going to. And that about sums it up. This is what teamwork looks like. So again, I'm making a March of the Machine Commander deck every... they are currently my Monday deck slot. So every Monday, I've got a different March of the Machine Commander deck out for each of the March of the Machine Legends. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a specific commander or style of deck. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell, and remember, magic is fun. You should play more Magic.